Hey, good morning, friends. I want to talk to you about sugar addiction a little bit. Sugar is something that's come up in some of my conversations, and I think it's a really important thing to talk about. If you're doing the Ultimate Portion Fix, you've got some great teaching on this from Autumn, but I want to make sure that we address this because I think to just know that I have a sugar addiction, or actually some of us I think don't realize we do, but to just know that doesn't solve the problem and help us step away from that. So really quickly, I think some things to know, and that's important to know, is that the food industry, and you probably know this, processed foods, anything pretty much that comes in a box or a container, much of the time, are chemically altered. We talk in clean eating and healthy eating a lot about read the labels, look at the labels. If there's things you don't recognize, chances are there's a good chance it's probably something that's not good for you. Not all the time, but much of the time. Excuse me. So, but essentially those chemically altered processed foods give our body a dopamine response. So things that we want it more and more. And really the big issue is the amount of sugar that's in those foods. It causes really the same chemical response in the brain as cocaine, which is bonkers when you think about it, right? But it's important to know that just because something says, one of the things that Autumn says in the Ultimate Portion Fix, is, we see something like an Apple bran muffin and we think, ooh, bran, that's healthy. But a Apple bran muffin has about the same amount of sugar as a package of M&Ms. A half of cup of pasta sauce and 3 Oreos have a similar amount. Now, this doesn't mean we shouldn't eat pasta sauce, but it's important to know what has sugar. Baked beans, lots of sugar. Half a cup of baked beans is about the same amount of sugar as a half a cup of vanilla ice cream. So we need to be, it's kind of learning and being aware. But they add sugar into everything to give it taste. This is crazy. The average American consumes about 152 pounds of sugar per year. And we're talking processed, like the white sugar that you put in your cookies, or like other chemical sugary stuff. And this is 40 pounds more than in 1980. And again, this is from Ultimate Portion Fix. But, children, oftentimes we think of, juice is a healthy thing. Well, juice gives you a ton of sugar, but it does not give you the fiber that you get in fruit. So part of breaking the addiction is starting to recognize what are the good choices, because ultimately we're going to have, it's not bad to have a certain amount of sugar, but it's like, what are we putting into our body? Because it's not as simple as calories in and calories out. It's about the quality of what we put in. What's actually going to fill me up and sustain me for longer? Something in like fruit versus juice, the fiber in the fruit is what keeps our blood sugar from spiking, whereas something like a glass of juice does not have that fiber, and thus oftentimes I actually now am aware enough that I can tell when I drank juice, I feel my body get kind of weird. Here's a few, I want to give you a few tips for kind of starting this process forward of breaking through this, but it's going to take some time. But I think a great question to ask yourself as you're learning is, what will this food tell my body to do right now? And if it is something, a clean, really healthy choice, it's going to use it as fuel, but otherwise it's going to store it as fat. So we can't, some people, sometimes just total cold turkey works for some people, and to say I'm not going to have, sugar, processed foods, all that kind of stuff. But if our body's super used to it, it's just like getting off of, drugs or whatever. Not that I don't have a whole lot of experience with that, but we detox. Our bodies need to detox, and it happens. It's not pleasant. It's happened to me when I've done like the pregnancy. The ultimate reset, yeah. The 21-day program. And the first few days are rough because you can feel your body detoxing from things you didn't even realize it needed to detox from. So things to keep in mind, baby stepping yourself away. If you're someone who's been drinking 3 sodas a day, to just cut them out entirely is probably not actually going to serve you. But to say, okay, this week I'm cutting it back by 1 each day, or by, just going down to 1 per day and kind of easing your way, whether it's that, I'm not encouraging you to keep eating your ice cream at night after dinner. But in that case, it might be something of like, and to have that on occasion is fine. But it's the habit and it's the need that we feel like we have. So essentially crowding out the not so good choices with better choices. The more that we start to replace and put in the good choices, we're not going to have room and we're not going to be as hungry for those other things. If you're using the container system and you're really spreading your containers out well and your meals have multiple, containers, you shouldn't be eating one container at a meal. It should be a couple different combinations of containers because that's going to give your body the nutrients that it needs. For To Be Mindset, she's kind of worked it out for you because she's told you the types of foods that you want to be including in each day, which is so helpful. You don't have to think about it. So the other thing is just knowing the difference between added sugars and natural sugars, because natural sugars are not bad when they're in balance and in proper proportions. Fruit is a good thing. And having the fiber and the nutrients we get from a piece of fruit is not bad. A little bit of honey, a little pure maple syrup, a little bit, those are naturally occurring sugars, whereas adding, the white sugar and other things like, and the stuff that's in processed foods that we don't really know about, that's where we kind of get ourselves into trouble. Other thing is just making some swaps. Shakeology is a great way to feel like, I get something that tastes like a sweet treat, and but it's giving, the other thing too is what Shakeology does is it comes in and it fills in the nutritional gaps that we're often deficient in. A lot of people drink protein shakes. Most people aren't deficient in protein, but they are nutrient deficient. This gives you a lean serving of protein, but it gives you the nutrients because of the state of our soils, because of the state of our food industry. The majority of people are lacking in certain key nutrients, which can make us crave other things. So that's why Shakeology can be a huge help as well, among many other reasons. But finding healthier alternatives, things that you feel satisfied by, but also feels like kind of, a sweet little treat or something like that. A big thing too is just cleaning out your pantry. I very rarely, much to my husband's dismay, although he's okay with it, I very rarely buy ice cream. I don't buy packaged cookies. My kids do not take those things to school with them. I do not buy yogurt with sugar and stuff like that. Now, if your family's been used to eating that, that's a tough switch to make perhaps, but I don't buy the stuff because if it's there in a pinch, I'll eat it. I rarely keep like extra chocolate chips around for baking. I actually bake a whole lot less and I'm okay with that because if it's there, I'll eat it. So I think just that awareness of what do I keep in my house, and I talked about this if you've watched my weekend video about how to thrive on the weekends. I just actually posted it yesterday. You can go in the learning section of this, and there's some videos on tips from me where this video is going to go as well. Oh yeah, I was like, what was I talking about? But keeping the, your treats to happening outside of the house, so that it's not something that you're bringing into your house and keeping there. Every time I do that, it doesn't turn out well. So the other thing is knowing your triggers. Oftentimes it's that mid-afternoon. If you're someone who gets that mid-afternoon, like I need some caffeine, I need some sugar, it's probably indicating that you're lacking in some nutrient type stuff and that really sugar's got kind of a hold in your life. Cutting back on alcohol is helpful. Being aware of sugar substitutes and just alternate names that things come under. There are so many names. I'm not going to get into that, but you can do a little bit of reading. But knowing, again, like I said before, what are the added sugars and what are the natural sugars? Things like, this is why, things like salad dressings. I have a great vinaigrette recipe. It's so easy and it's really tasty. No sugar, but if you go buy one at the store, chances are it has added sugar. And you can help yourself out by taking 5 minutes to throw together a dressing recipe, and I don't always do this, but I try to, that's just going to last me for a week or so, And then I'm avoiding those added sugars and those other places that just don't serve me and my energy level. Planning our food. We don't need to, if you may not be someone who thrives by planning every meal out for the entire week, and that may feel like restriction to you, but knowing at the beginning of the day what your plan is and having healthy options on hand is going to help you in that area. So this is kind of, again, crowding out the not so good by adding more of the good, drinking a lot of water. That flushes our body of toxins. Knowing the difference and just being educated. If you watch a documentary on the food industry and stuff like that, that in itself will get you like, oh my gosh. Do a little bit of research on sugar addiction. If you're not doing Ultimate Portion Fix, Autumn gets into it a decent amount there too. But really, a lot of food addiction struggles are tied to sugar and what that triggers in our minds as far as the dopamine response and really the addiction, which is, I think, important to know. So some of it is just making that choice of I'm going to start replacing and crowding out and adding better things in there. So hopefully this is helpful. It's a start, but the awareness and the knowledge is power. So knowing what it can do to your body, knowing you don't want to be slave to that is really important in making the choice. And you may be someone for whom, it's kind of like a drink for an alcoholic. Once you have one, you can't, you just have to completely kind of cut it out. Everybody's different. You may be someone that says, you know what, I'm gonna have that ice cream once a week, and that's okay. That's not something that, if we're struggling with shame and guilt there, then we've got some food, some disordered thinking as far as food is concerned, because food is not intended to be the enemy. But we have to just kind of reorient our thinking about what is the role that food plays in my life. Is this food fuel, or is this food a fix, right? Not in the Ultimate Portion Fix sort of fix way, but is this giving me an emotional, hit that I need? So just self-awareness, pay attention. I'd love to hear your comments below this video as to what you're doing that is helpful to you to kind of break from the sugar. But keep in mind, the Fix8 Cooking Show on Beachbody On Demand, the Fix8 cookbooks, they all have really awesome alternative choices, things that you may not even need to replace a container, but just can fit right into your meal plan, but feel like a treat. But again, if you know that you're someone who's going to if you make a plate of, I've done this, make a pan of chickpea brownies and they're tasty, and you're just going to keep going back for more, just because it's a healthier option, you can still overeat that. So again, knowing your tendencies and starting to put boundaries in place that are healthy, and inviting people into that process with you is an important thing too. I'm going to stop rambling, but hopefully that is helpful to you today for Tasty Tuesday.